welcome to the so-called New Year. Um, Round and round we go. I mean, really, it's interesting. Like when the concept of a year, was when humans figured out that there were years because there were these cycles, right? Obviously, uh, and but they didn't know what it was. They didn't know that it represented a circumambulation of the sun. You know, it's kind of interesting that they had that one part, but they didn't have the other part. But in terms of a functional thing, I think the first part was more important than knowing what was happening. So that's sort of a metaphor, right? Just you don't have to know everything. You just need to be able to function within the way things work. I'll take that as a starting point for today's contemplation and meditation. So just settling back into a meditation posture. And you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. And as we do that, as we withdraw from the visual world, start to connect more with the felt world, the physical feelings and senses, the more emotional felt world, the mental states. Because the visual world tends to dominate our senses and our consciousness so much, just cutting it off immediately shifts our perception. And this then can help us to become more present, more mindful, not so outwardly focused. And feeling the breath moving in the body. Breathing in and breathing out. And letting the body settle. Feel tension being released. Letting go of the shoulders, softening the belly. Relaxing the face, the jaw, the eyes. Feeling the body at rest, stillness. And feeling the breath moving within that stillness. the mind moves as well. Even as we guide the attention to the breath and to the present moment, the habits of thinking often continue. And so we continue to come back, let go of thoughts, return to the breath. Rather than thinking of our meditation as an attempt to stop the mind, it's more helpful to think of it as being present for the flow of experience, flow of breath, of sensations, of sounds, of thoughts and feelings. With the breath as a kind of center or anchor. As we observe this flow, you can start to see the connection between thoughts, feelings, sensations and thoughts, feelings and sensations. This whole interdependent system of mind and body. There's a sense of non-resistance to this unfolding, just allowing, observing, breathing. What's the feeling tone of your present moment experience? How personally do you take that feeling tone? If it's pleasant, you're happy; unpleasant, not so happy, or resistant; neutral, then bored maybe. A part of our practice is to learn to be non-reactive to the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral quality of our experience. Just be open, receptive, interested, observing. Okay, then. Thanks for dropping by the neighborhood. Yeah, it always, this time of years, I don't know what it's like for everybody here. My feeling of it is a little bit of sort of disorientation. You sort of go through this period of holidays where your routine typically is broken. And then there's this whole idea of a new year, which, has these realities that we deal with. Like, we have to write a different number or type a different number. But also then, as I've been talking about a little bit, just we're very conditioned to think of this as a new year, and that there's some pressure on it and some significance. And so, if this is a good time to, to have a resolution or some change or commitment to something, which, is not a bad thing. It can be useful. But the reason that most resolutions don't stick is that nothing real has actually happened in terms of, it being a new year. It's just, you're the same person. It's like the old, wherever you go, there you are. Here you are in this moment of time. You're not different. Oh, darn. I thought I could be a different person now. But it's okay to be who you are, I think. I hope it is. It's one of the, perennial habits and ideas that somehow we're going to become different people, and particularly in this sort of spiritual community, we're maybe striving for some goal or some ideal of who we think we should be, or what we imagine we could be, or maybe even what we think somebody else is, and we'll become like them. That enlightened person, I'll become like them. And even getting sober. I mean, or clean, whatever, coming into recovery, whatever that means for you, and whatever you were dealing with, it is a huge change. But then after a while, it's like, oh, but I'm still me, I've still got to deal with this personality, or these preferences, or these likes and dislikes, and these abilities and these inabilities, these, character defects or hindrances or underlying tendencies, whatever you call them. So yeah, I think that's why acceptance is so important in all of this, in recovery and in spiritual practice. In the RAIN practice, if you're familiar with it, the RAIN, the recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identify, nurture. That as soon as we engage in the recognition in that process, which is really just a sort of deconstruction of the mindfulness process, in a way, kind of breaking it into parts. But as soon as we recognize and see what's happening, before we do anything with it, it's suggested that we need to accept it. Like, this is how it is, because there's so much a tendency to, like, oh, I see what's happening, I need to do this about that. This is how I have to fix that, change that, get rid of that, get more of that. And it's like, no, just like be with it, start with just being with it. And then investigate it. And investigate, it means be more with it, really. But also it means see how it arises. I mean, this is what the Buddha always talks about. See what it is, see how it arises, see how it passes, and then see what a wise response is. So that's all, all of that, recognize, accept, investigate, all comes before we start to try to do anything about it. Because otherwise we're acting out of, craving and aversion, it's reactive, it's not responsive. So that it's good that I landed on the word response, because that reminds me that that what I said I was going to do today is do questions and responses. So that's I guess that means we have to unlock, or we could make people type in their questions. You can do that too if you like. If you have a question, or you want to, or even if it doesn't have to be a question, it could be a topic. There we go. There's Kate from Wisconsin. Ooh, and we thought our weather was bad in Northern California.
I can also, I'm going to unmute her.
Okay, good. Thanks, Angela. I see a question in the chat too. I'll respond to that.
Good morning.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. Yes, it is a balmy 27. So
that's above zero. Oh man, you're just
yes. Christmas Day we were at, I think, 2 below zero. So
that's more like it.
Yeah, more like it. Absolutely brings out the best in us. Kevin, last night, and it's interesting the format you've moved to for today's gathering. I started your daily reflections book mid-year last year, and did it sporadically. And this year I'm doing it as part of my morning practice. And I was awake all night, literally, and I'm not sure that happens from time to time as we age. Don't need as much sleep. And your reflection for January 3rd had me hooting and hollering out loud. And and I had to look up a word that you used in a sentence, and it's about powerlessness, January 3rd, and your sentence is, it doesn't mean we are helpless victims. It doesn't mean we have no agency in our lives.
Mm.
It's an acknowledgement of our lack of control over a certain realm, namely our addictive relationship to a substance or behavior. It doesn't mean we are powerless over everything else in the world. I looked up, did a little investigation around that, and found that that's exactly what having agency in my life or over my life is, those things for which I am able to respond and be responsible for, and control, in a sense. I mean, there are things that I can control. I can control when I get out of bed. I can control whether or not I take out the garbage. I can control all sorts of things.
Yeah.
However, I have been in recovery for over 22 years, and I have this really interesting relationship right now between another 12-step fellowship and my Buddhist practice and my meditation. And the reading helped me last night or early in this morning acknowledge that I'm not cheating on anybody by having the influence of both programs in my life, just keeping the language simple. And that has been a great struggle for me, because I have deep relationships and friendships with people over, obviously, that span of time. And I don't want to lose that. And yet my integrity is so important to me that I can't see myself for much longer participating in certain aspects of the other program.
Hmm.
Because it no longer resonates with me in a way that feels authentic for me.
Right.
However, also being in a pretty rural area where there aren't a lot of people with a lot of clean time, there's also that drive, and that, not a drive so much as it feels like an obligation to show up and be present for those coming in, for those who need to see that it works.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that. I struggle with that. And I am, I've used enough time. I can be muted now. I just am curious on your response, and perhaps anything you're picking up by what I've said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that probably many of us come to this, I don't know if it's a crossroads, but sort of, question of what the role, particularly if you've been in a 12-step program and it's, higher power, and there's a lot of that talk, and there's, certain parts of the country, there's going to be more of that talk. In Berkeley, there's a lot of atheists, which can be just as annoying, frankly, as people who are, evangelizing. But I mean, I don't have a solution. My thought is that we have to find a way to, I don't know if we have to, but one might try to find a way to a little bit compartmentalize and allow, allow there to be these different areas, communities that we participate in. It's kind of like, as I often talk, I go and I play golf, and when I go and play golf, I don't sort of talk about Buddhism with people, and I mean, it's still a silly comparison, but in a way, it's just like when I'm there, I'm just doing that, right? So it's like, if I go to an AA meeting, I don't talk, even if I'm asked to speak at an AA meeting, I don't talk about Buddhism or the Dharma, I talk about recovery. And so, we actually do this in a very natural way in our lives. When you go to, if you have a job, you don't sort of share everything about your relationship necessarily at work, or, you, in your relationship, you don't necessarily talk all about the thing that you talk about with your friends, that whatever, community you're part of. So I think it's a little bit to sort of have boundaries, which for addicts can be really difficult. Like we feel like, I don't know how different people feel, but one of the ways you can feel is like, I have to be honest with everybody. No, you don't. And I don't mean you have to lie to everybody, but you don't have to expose everything to everybody. It's okay to protect your different worlds. And I definitely, my early recovery, I very much compartmentalized this, and it was necessary because I didn't understand Buddhism enough, even though I was a sort of practitioner, and I didn't understand recovery enough. So, I also really, in like the 80s, nobody was going to really hear me if I tried to bring Dharma into the rooms, or indeed if I tried to bring 12 steps into the Dharma spaces. So that's about the best response I can give. I don't know if that gets at what you're feeling, your conflict around that. That was just a guess. So hope that's helpful. So for some reason, my computer is dinging, so I don't know if you guys are hearing the bell going off, but oh, good, not. There was another hand up and then it went away. So John, you were asking about meditating with your eyes open. Do you want to talk about that? Have you done that? Have you tried that? I don't know if,
There we-
yeah,
there
there
we
you
go.
go.
Yeah, I'm good. Well, last week, I was mentioning that closing my eyes seemed to put me into the
Oh yeah, right,
describing the sinking mind as you
Right.
described it. And
Very
I
good.
looked it up, and it makes a lot of sense. I thought I was, having an experience, but really I was just just lucid dreaming more than anything. So
Yeah.
I don't, my experience with meditation is fairly narrow. So if, I don't expect you to do a whole seminar during this hour on, meditating with your open eyes, but just any thoughts, whatever you think might be a simple way to do it, or, something like that. Nothing too elaborate.
Well, I don't do it as a continuous practice, so I can't talk about it in that way. It is how people are taught to meditate in a lot of the Tibetan world and in Zen. So I guess in Mahayana, and so that's just, that's just not. I haven't practiced in that tradition. So the way I do it, the way I use it, is as a way of waking myself up and occasionally snapping myself out of such states. So I just open my eyes for a minute, and I'll say, like when I'm on retreat, there are times when I'll just be falling asleep, for an extended period of a meditation session, and so I'll just give up trying to have my eyes closed, and I'll open them, and the instruction is usually just have them be half open, but that's never worked for me. If I half open my eyes, they quickly just close. I can't, and so if I'm really sleepy, I just open my eyes, like, bug out, like, okay, and I'm just staring. So in that, in terms of practice in that, I'm not really looking at anything. I'm not actually using the visual world as my concentration object. I'm actually still paying attention to the breath and the body. It's just that my eyes are open. And because, in a meditation hall, or like in my space that I meditate, which is over in the corner over here, there's just a Buddha there. There's no, real distractions. So, I just kind of like look. And typically when I'm doing that, I'm already in this kind of woozy state. So it doesn't really, not much happens. It's not like, I'm just kind of spaced out anyway. So I'm just trying to, it's really just like a survival technique, like, which is, it might sound silly, but if I commit myself to meditate for a certain period of time, I try to really stay in that posture for that time. And sometimes that means I'm just sitting here, nothing's really happening, or I'm just like whacked out, I'm falling asleep, but I'm here, I'm determined. So it's kind of my determination. And I do find it ultimately to be helpful, because it is learning to bring the slim amount of mindfulness that I have available into, my mind at that point, and being able to arouse just a little bit of mindfulness when I'm very sleepy or tired is actually good. Like when I get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I don't always succeed, but I try to like bring mindful at some point. I'm like, oh, wait, all right, be mindful of walking, like be mindful of breathe and be mindful of breathing and sort of, because it's just like another opportunity to not be unmindful. And I talk about this in somewhere in one of my books, or maybe a couple of them, how, on a very practical level, fatigue is a trigger for relapse. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. It's one of the halt. And so when we can learn to bring some degree of mindfulness into those moments of tiredness, then we're less likely to fall into the triggers. We're more likely like, oh, right, I'm really tired and I'm craving whatever, whether it's food, sex, drugs, it just all the things that get triggered when our ordinary energy isn't there to carry us, and when we sort of are overwhelmed or kind of overrun with those triggering energies. So if I practice being mindful when I'm really tired, I think it's a relapse prevention practice. All right, Vicky, hi.
Oh, geez. Okay, there you go. So yeah, John, I'm taken with this because I was on a meditation retreat, a long one, and after some weeks of silence and meditation, there are these states like tranquility, which are quite remarkable, and there's energy there, but there's this deep, quiet, slow, calm thing that is also, it's like the variety of experiences in meditation. It's pretty interesting, and to kind of get that there's a spectrum, and that sinking mind. Because I had sinking mind too, but then it's kind of like, all right, and then the energy comes up, and it's kind of like, whoa, you hit another layer of something. And it's, there are these words, in Buddhism, like tranquility, and this jhanic stuff that is, it's very interesting how the mind can be in these states. Yeah. Anyway, just thought I'd chime in on that.
Thanks, Vicky. No, it's very true. And so, and as I've talked about too, sometimes the fact that you're falling asleep is a sign that you're getting concentrated, but as you're suggesting, but there isn't enough balancing energy to keep you alert through it. And that's what usually develops. It takes a little while on a meditation retreat to find that balance. We're often sort of up and down for the first few days or the first week or so. And then on the longer retreat, for some reason, it takes longer to settle in. The mind knows I've got plenty of time. So, but it is very interesting. And I think that once again, our expectations about how it should be, or some logical idea of like, oh, I'm really tired, I'm falling asleep, I might as well go to bed, is actually, no, that's not true. That fatigue isn't necessarily the need for rest. And if you can sustain your attention, then it can come back into balance. And so once again, it's so much about just showing up and not having expectations and trusting in the process. And that's hard. It's hard to do. Yeah. Hey, Debbie. Great. Hi. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just really appreciating the inquiries here today, and of course, relating it to my personal experience as well. um, I, I I kind of let go of resolutions a number of years ago because of the continual disappointments in my life. Then, when I was developing my, higher meditative mindfulness practices, I thought, okay, well, I'll switch the word to intentions, feeling like there was a little more freedom in it, a little more flow. But underneath of that, it's still something, right? That is coming with this, transition, transitioning from this on the cusp from, one year to another, and feeling a fresh start. And I know as an addict, alcoholic, that I can get really gung-ho about a new idea. I can be the most creative powerhouse think tanker, but give me a week and it's over. And
Mm,
so it's just kind of there. So anyway, this year I have some stuff I really want to work with. And a lot of it has to do with, kind of this unbalancedness, which is I'm feeling is the remnants of how I have been in relationship with the whole pandemic thing. And I'm sick and
mhm.
tired of talking about pandemic. Time to move on. But there's remnants, there's things.
Yeah.
And I've really been able to cultivate my mindfulness practices, my meditations, the feeling of sangha and community. It's been wonderful and beautiful. And then I totally neglected or slipped out of cultivating and maintaining wellness in other areas of my life. Some of it having to do with organization, some of it having to do with taking care of my physical well-being.
Mm,
And so these are the forefront of my head, of my mind for this year. And so the question, or what I want to, put out here to you, as I'm kind of saying, what's going to support me the most in this movement forward? And I've landed on wise effort. This is what I need, wise effort. But I don't want to be,
yeah.
I don't want to
Mhm,
be hard about it. So now I'm going, okay, balancing effort. When you said balancing,
mhm.
so it's this whole energy of balancing. How do we thread that needle, or how do we, catch yourself from being that driven, I got to do this, and the fix it mind state, and shift it to the loving, oh, I care enough about my life that can I be open to putting some effort into making a change, like I did when I decided to quit picking up a drink.
Yeah.
But this is in other areas of my life, which now I slip into because I, let go of the drink and the
Yeah.
alcohol and the drugs. So do you kind of get the gist of that inquiry?
I think so.
Thanks.
I mean, the short answer is very mindfully. You know, Uh, uh, you know, and I know that's too easy, but it really is true, and but it does take that careful investigation of your own personal tendencies, right, in this context of Dharma. So that's, as you're saying, remembering to be kind and patient with yourself, but also knowing like, oh, here are the areas that I don't tend to do enough around and work hard enough around. In this here, it's okay if I push myself. Like, I'm not creating suffering by pushing myself, because we can use that whole thing as like, oh no, don't push yourself because you're just creating more suffering. It's like, no, you're just being lazy. Speaking for myself, this is one of my tendencies, to just like, oh, I'm just letting go. It's like, no, you're not letting go. You're being passive, and so it's to see those qualities in yourself, and then and push yourself where there needs to be a push, but we can push ourselves kindly too, right? pushing doesn't have to be violent or harsh, but it's like, yeah, I'm going to go and enjoy it, right? Enjoy the aggression, the assertive energy, like, oh, this feels kind of good, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I think of it, and what I have to do in terms of those kind of. And right now, here in Northern California, it's such a hibernation time that it's really hard to get energy going. Like we haven't had one of these winters in a while. And so my refuge in these kind of winters is Charles Dickens, because long, complicated sentences are the perfect thing for when it's just like dark and you're in the you're just in this long impenetrable story, like everything is so slow and unfolding that it has nothing to do with your question, Debbie, but it just got in my mind last night. I pulled some Dickens off the shelf and yes, I have no idea what's going to happen in this. It's just a long, really sentence, and I have to like really pay careful attention to the whole sentence, because otherwise halfway through I've lost the thread. I don't know what it's about. It's really good. It's kind of like doing crossword puzzles.
I love it. Well, I can relate to that too, around right now too, because it is that kind of cruise time. So, but it doesn't mean I have to check out.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had to make sure that I get out and take a walk the last few days, even when it's pouring rain. I have these like rain pants, raincoat, rain hat, and I just go. It doesn't matter. I can just rain boots, just go out and walk, move my body, because I just start to turn into a slug. And there's a lot of really good YouTube videos about guitar players that can take up my entire day. So.
Well, thank you for holding space for this. Just being able to put it out here, I just already feel a support from that. And one step at a time. And get back in. For me, I think getting back into really enjoying the energy of it. Bring it up, and go, this feels good. Yeah.
I was talking, I had a great, like, clean out the garage, clean out the storage room a couple of days last week that were just really, really satisfying. And boy, it really helps with the housemate too. Is really appreciative of that too. So, I wanted to talk before I go. I know people are starting to drop off, but if you are in the Bay Area, it would be great if you showed up this Saturday for my in-person day long in Oakland. It's at 55th and Telegraph, the East Bay Community Space. There's a big sign on the side from 10 to 4. And I'm going to be working with my book, my new old book, Living Kindness. And as I was preparing for that, and I'm giving a talk next week for the Boulder, Colorado Sangha on Tuesday night as well on this. I realized it might be, as some people have been asking if I would do a small group again. We were doing the sutta study, and I'm thinking about developing maybe a 6 or 8 week course on my book, Living Kindness, and if, kind of have it be a small group, maybe 10 or 12 people. So if people are interested in that, maybe let me know, and maybe 1 or 2 people can help me organize it. And it would be, I would actually charge for it because I have to do that. And if I charge for it, it'll actually motivate me to do a better job. Like, I will actually make a course. So if people are interested in that, and let me know, and we'll I'm thinking maybe to start that in February. So Meanwhile, what is our topic for today? I think we'll make it right effort, because it also has to do with powerlessness, which was an earlier topic. So just I try to leave each class with a sort of something to take with you and to work with over the coming days. And so this is a really good moment, like to reflect on what do I want to make, rather than I'm making a resolution right now. What do I want to make a little more effort in my life, or effort applied to in my life? And maybe there's a counter question to that. What do I want to make less effort or give less energy to right now in my life? So that seems like a good contemplation. So I thank you all for coming, and don't drink or use no matter what. Really, we lost somebody in our community recently who relapsed. And so it's a really important reminder, because oftentimes one of the results of relapse is then one way or another, a life lost. So take care of yourselves.